Hello, Hoovies, and welcome back to the third channel. Hooray! I am back. I didn't leave anywhere really. I just hung around in a wardrobe and starved myself for a week whilst I waited for the next endeavour. So we are back onto the wonderful third channel doing a wonderful interview. Yes, wonderful. As always, you can see all my other stuff on other channels, and there'll be an episode of TGM Productions, the podcast, soon, so we can talk about all things what's going on in the Tom Mason universe. Ooh. Anyway, so we shall crack on. My guest today is very well known in the world of acting and comedy. So no matter how old you are, you'll recognise his face and you'll recognise his voice because he's done stuff for the radio. He's best known as Clinton Baptiste. It's the one and only Alex Lowe.
Hello.
And so we'll start at a pivotal point at the very beginning. How did you get into the wonderful world of acting?
Well, Tom, I was a child actor, which is a miracle, really, because my parents were not really very theatrical types. They were kind of suburban, lower middle class people without being too snobby about it, or making them out to be working in a bloody coal mine. They were not really kind of very theatrical type. So a miracle, and I really take my hat off to them. They let me go to quite a strict after-school drama school. This was in northwest London, and I sort of joined an agency, and I was in a play in the West End called Another Country, which then became a big film, which no one asked me to be in. It doesn't matter. And then I did things like Mansfield Park for the BBC. And these remember Adrian Mole when that was first written. I did these cassettes which were sold in the shops. So I did lots of stuff, a bit of TV for Thames Television, and so that's how I sort of did it. It's the only thing I ever really wanted to do, and it was lovely because it kind of set me up a bit for later in life. And then I did a degree in drama, which was pretty awful at Leicester Polytechnic. But the thing about it was we had no resources. This is in the 80s when people didn't even pay to go away and become a student. So we had some really terrible facilities, but so it sort of gave us a sense of self-sufficiency and really trying hard for yourself and not having it on a plate. So I did my degree in drama, and then luckily I joined Kenneth Branagh's theatre company almost immediately after I left Leicester Poly. And Kenneth Branagh was a guy who'd been in Another Country, this play I'd done when I was 14. So that's quite a long answer, but basically I was a child actor, and miraculously I've managed to keep going as an actor since.
And how has you been a child actor developed into you falling into the world of comedy?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I think comedy has always really been my first love. And for many, many years, I was just kind of straight actor. And I tell you exactly how it happened, really. I got to about the age of 30, and I've always thought, if nothing else, and for anyone listening who wants to be an actor or work in the arts in any way, it is quite a difficult thing to do. Everyone wants to do it, and there's not enough work to go round. And they're always looking for ways to underpay you. And just because it's a privilege to do that for a living. So I think when I got to about the age of 30, I thought to myself, if nothing else, you've still got your thing that you think you can do, even if it means putting a crate on the ground and standing up and performing. So I didn't quite do that, but I thought I would go to the Edinburgh Festival, and I'd never been there before to do a show. Actually, I had when I was much younger, but I thought I will put my money where my mouth is and do a comedy show. And luckily that did quite well for me. It was based on a book by Simon Garfield called The Wrestling, which was all about British wrestling in the 1970s. And I played a variety of kind of very famous British wrestlers. And it sort of from that moment on, I kind of decided to be a little bit more self-sufficient
Yeah.
and try and do my own stuff, which I always think nowadays with your age group of people, you've got all these opportunities, social media and YouTube, and even if you put something out on Facebook, whatever it is. I know I sound like a dinosaur even saying Facebook nowadays, but there are platforms for you to do that. But when I turned 30 and I started thinking, my God, what am I going to do to generate some work? You're sort of limited by trying to get on the radio or doing shows above a pub in London or going to Edinburgh. And so, that was quite a good thing for me. And it just sort of, the great thing was Peter Kay came to see me for Phoenix Nights, Edinburgh Nights for BBC Two. And that's how we got acquainted. So I have him to thank for that, really. He came to review this particular show.
And how did you end up working with Peter Kay in a broad, wider sense, not just in the sense of working as Clinton?
Well, precisely that. He came to see me doing this wrestling show with Bomber Pat Roach, who was an actor who was in a show called Auf Wiedersehen, Pet. And he had been a professional wrestler. And Peter turned up with him and they were reviewing it for this BBC Two show. And it's a thing that, I've told this many times on various interviews and things, that Pat Roach, I was playing this fictional wrestler who was doing this show at Edinburgh called Scott Bradley. It was just a name I invented. And Pat Roach said to me, I haven't seen you on the wrestling circuit. And I was like, well, no, I'm an actor. I'm not really a wrestler. And then there was a bit of a lull in the conversation. A bit later, Pat Roach said to me, I didn't see you at Tiger Ryan's funeral. And I had to say, Tiger Ryan being some kind of wrestler, and I had to say again, no, I've just told you I'm not a real wrestler. And to this day, if I speak to Peter, he says to me, I haven't seen you at Tiger Ryan's funeral. So that was it. And Peter and I sort of hung around a bit at the Edinburgh Festival that year in 1998. And then he very kindly put me in that Peter Kay thing, which was the kind of the forerunner to Phoenix Nights. And then he put me in Phoenix Nights and, happily has let me carry on playing Clinton. So I've got a lot to thank him for.
And how did the Clinton Faculty's successful podcast come about?
Good lad. Well, I suppose... I was hardly in Phoenix Nights. There's only one episode, and I'm only in it for about 5 minutes. And I always thought that the character had such mileage. I think it's, you play a larger-than-life character, and he's a sort of plucky loser that people... It's sort of British thing. People like someone who's a try-hard, who doesn't, you can see the cogs working. I always think that in America, they like heroes and like people who are sort of indestructible. But in Britain, we love to see we like to see the cogs working. We like to see them trying and sort of failing. I don't know what it is about the British psyche that is that. And I just thought it's a no-brainer to play Clinton on the comedy circuit. And then I thought, I wanted to do a podcast which were, just sort of taking shape in what is this, about 2018, I think I started it. And I just thought I've got so many ideas for sketches and things that Clinton could do. And so I had a voice agent. Well, I've still got the same voice agent. And we just decided to put some stuff down, in the studio. And we just kept the thing going. And now, having started off doing the podcast with a series of sketches over about kind of 4 series, we then did series 5 and 6. It's very much in the way that people do podcasts, which is kind of, I do 2 a week, where it's sort of semi-improvised and it's easy to just trot it out and then put it out there rather than doing fully formed sketches. And it's just I'll be honest, it does pay money because I have a Patreon site and people pay to get it every every week. So it's quite handy for a bit of money. I don't really make a huge amount of money, but it's quite nice, as I said, to be self-sufficient. And, you know, I do it all from here with this microphone and I have a co-host. So it's quite nice to, you know, as I said before, you know, in the old days, you'd be waiting to have a meeting about a meeting about a meeting at the BBC. Nowadays, you want to do something like you, where you are now. I'll do it. I'll just, create my own show. So hats off to you. That's how I feel.
And do you reckon that the podcast would work as well on TV as well as in audio form?
Yes, I do. So anyone out there who wants to put it on TV, yeah, please do. Yeah, I do. I think so.
Yeah.
I think you could do footage of going to see haunted houses. I think it'd be quite funny to have me and my, co-host sat in the studio. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer.
And not only have you done Clinton Baptiste, a word that I will eventually say correct one day.
Yeah, yeah.
You've also appeared in Series 1, Episode 4 of Matt Berry's I Regress. What was it like appearing on an episode of Matt Berry's hilarious radio series?
Well, I've known Matt for many, many years. We did a show called Monkey Trousers for Vic and Bob, which was, I don't know, it was BBC Two, might have been BBC Two. I can't remember who it was for. But I've known Matt for years, and we've often done little funny. I think I did stuff on his Absolute Radio show and maybe put it out as a podcast. I did my Nicholas Parsons. And then Matt just asked if I'd be in I Regress. I mean, I love Matt. He's a brilliant, brilliant, funny man. Just, very funny. So he asked me to do that, and that was great fun. I'd like to do more with Matt,
Yeah. And not only have you've also appeared on an episode, according to the internet. It says an episode. Who knows? The internet's a lot of the time wrong. What was it like appearing on an episode of a program that aired on CBC that not many people know of, but I thought it was hilarious? Hotel Trouble.
Hotel Trouble. Yes, that was. I have done a little bit of kids dramas. Yeah, that was good. We shot that in Barnet, just up the road from me. I remember getting very messy in it. I think I had custard pies and all sorts thrown at me. Yeah, great fun. Really great fun. I tell you what I did once, which, this is no disrespect for those people working on it, but I mean, sometimes television, there's no money in it nowadays. And we did a thing for CBBC called Ed and Oucho's Excellent Adventure. Did you ever see that in your youth?
I did.
Right. Well, I did that, and it was so cheaply done. I mean, I don't mind doing, I'm not particularly fussy. I'm not like, I don't think, oh, that's beneath me to do that. But we did this thing. We went round the country. I think I was in a couple of episodes, and it was such a tiny budget that everything was filmed outdoors, so they didn't have to use any lighting. And then we had a tiny bit in the studio, and I think I was terrible in that. Terrible. When I think now, when it comes to talking about kids' TV, but it was all done on a wing and a prayer. And so there are some things I'm not that thrilled about that I did. I'm sure the show was excellent, but I wasn't very good in it, but mainly because I think they rushed it so quickly.
And do you like watching yourself or listening to yourself back when you're on these programs and radio series and podcasts?
Do you know what? I don't. Honestly, this sounds like fake humility. I don't tend to watch my stuff on TV, only because I don't watch that much TV. I find the internet fascinating. I've got a family. I've just joined a very expensive gym. I like to watch films and all sorts. There's loads of things I think, oh God, I never watched that back. So I also, probably like a lot of people my age, don't like seeing myself because I think I'm getting balder and fatter by the minute. So you see yourself, you think, God, is that what I look like? In fact, looking at this now, I'm thinking, yeah, blimey, who's that fat, balding, middle-aged bloke? So I don't mind listening to myself on the podcast just because I got to check it and make sure I don't sound too stupid. So and also I quite like my podcast, and I like the relationship between me and my co-host Catherine. So I quite like listening to that because I think we have quite a nice rapport, and she's very funny, and I'm always amazed at, I can throw anything at her and she never sits there going, I don't really know. She can always come up with some funny idea or something that's happened in her life. So I don't mind that, but looking at myself, no. No thanks.
And do you find that improvising is a lot easier for you to be able to make the work the best to your ability?
I think I do quite like that. As I get older, I'm getting slightly less fearless. If you are, I mean, I do a lot of improvising with Dan Skinner. We do a podcast called Angelos and Barry, the all new Angelos and Barry podcast, and we improvise the whole thing. He's just left my house just now. We've just been improvising for an hour or something. So I do quite like that. I do get a little bit scared when, you're doing stand-up comedy and there's an audience who have paid money
Yeah.
and you can see the whites of their eyes. And I think that my actor's training was always, this is the script, do the script. So you somehow have to kind of unlearn that, be free enough to sort of, improvise with the audience and, be quite sharp like that. So I think I'm learning that a bit better to kind of come off the script a bit. But I do quite like it in a safe environment where I can chat to you all day. If there was a sea of faces looking at me, I'd think, "Oh God, where's the script?"
Yeah, and one of the things you've done that some people were when it got announced that the whole thing was being made were like, oh, and some people like, ooh, what was it like appearing in the Fireman Sam CGI version?
Great. I mean, I've done tons and tons and tons of Fireman Sam. Must be 10 years or something of doing Fireman Sam. Um, it's a nice little job. I play three. How many parts do I play in it? 3 or 4 parts I play in Fireman Sam. So yeah, I'm delighted to be in that because it's also quite a famous thing, Fireman Sam. So I like being in that.
Yeah. And do you find that voice acting is a lot more liberating than appearing on the screen and worrying that you're not performing as well as you would like, and it's harder to be able to say, "Oh, can we do it again?" Because of a lot of things, they might not have enough time to do bits.
Oh, I see. What do you mean? If you're in the voice studio, you can do things more than
Yeah,
once.
yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's easier from that point of view. They don't have to stop the lighting and get the extras to move in the background and kind of reset everyone. I think yes, I do feel slightly more pressure if you're on a TV set. I mean, I think the worst thing about that is I really, all your viewers here will say, oh, yes, I vaguely know that bloke. I have made a career over many, many years of turning up in 1 or 2 episodes of something. And it's always quite difficult to turn up where there are, actors who are sort of in it for 6 episodes or something. And this is one thing that you do feel a lot of pressure for is if you're just turning up and I think they call it in the States a day player,
Yeah.
and you're there just for a short time, you tend to get picked up first thing in the morning. You sit in a dressing room or a porter cabin or something, or a Winnebago, and then you go to the set and you find your sort of few lines, your couple of pages of lines. You have to really know them because it feels like you're just dropped in. Everyone knows everyone else. Everyone's very confident. There's a slight air of who's this bloke? Is he going to be any good? You don't have a chance to be up to speed with everyone and the characters and everything. You've just got to kind of get on with it. And so I've always found that quite difficult. You'll be in a hotel the night before, pacing up and down, thinking, these lines won't go into my head. So yeah, to answer your question, that is a pressure. And then you don't want to be going, can we do that again? Because quite often you're not the main guy,
And do you reckon that with you now be able to go out and perform Clinton Baptiste, you don't always need Peter Kay to write something for you, can go out and do your own thing. Do you reckon that Clinton would be a good fit to appear on panel shows?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know about that, only because, if you're playing a fictional character, you have to invite the audience to invest in that quite a lot. And I think if you go on stage and you go, this is my show, people know it's all artifice.
Yeah.
When you have a panel game show, although they're playing slightly heightened versions of themselves, you still know it's them and they're being off the cuff funny. If every time we come to Clinton, I've got to be kind of larger than life, after a while, it's like, yeah, okay, that's just, it's kind of tipping it a little bit. I think I just think it's a different kind of comedy. It's for the same reason. If you're doing a stand-up show and you're playing a character, you never go on first.
Yeah,
You don't go on first because the audience aren't quite ready for it. They will be ready for someone to come on and, as I say, play a slightly heightened version of themselves
yeah,
and talk about their everyday life. But you've got to get people into it, allow them to sink into it first. I think so. I just think it might jar a bit to suddenly have this larger than life character doing stuff that sounds like scripted lines,
yeah.
and
So,
it will sound like scripted lines because it's all pretend anyway.
yeah, so do you not think that he would work in Dictionary Corner on 8 out of 10 Catsters Countdown? Because they have a lot of random, bizarre comedy characters appear on it.
I guess on something like that, yeah, it might do where there's a tradition of that and you kind of get the character. But yeah, I mean, I would be very nervous doing that. I don't know why. I
Yeah,
just would. There's something about that. I would be very nervous. It's a bit like, here's the funny bloke. Go on, do your funny character. That's the only thing.
yeah. And not only have you appeared in Hotel Trouble on CBC, you also appeared in an episode of the original version before they brought it back and added the word return to the title. What would it like appearing in an episode of The Slammer?
Oh yes, gosh, I love all these kids shows you saw. Um, the Slammer was great, and I always thought I thought it was a brilliant idea. The Slammer, actually, to have a cabaret and a drama going on at the same time, and of course that's where I met Ted Robbins, who played the governor of that, and he was also Den Perry in Phoenix Nights, who's a great mate of mine now, and we've done a few gigs together up where he lives in Rawtenstall near Burnley. I just came back from there just now. So great to meet Ted. Great premise for a show. Brilliant premise for a show. Cabarets going on at a prison. So yeah, I think they should. I mean, I'd be great. Is that back now or not?
No, they had it and then they brought it back like
Right.
4 years later, calling it The Slammer Returns.
Yeah.
And it was basically the same program, just adding the word returns to the.
Well, I think they should bring it back. It's a fantastic idea.
It was amazing. It
Yeah.
was funny, and it was also slightly odd sometimes because you would wonder why they would. There was an episode where they sent a
Yeah.
child into the prison because they thought that child's naughty. Let's just lock him up.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
They did,
Absolutely.
they did a lot of that in children's TV around then. They had a program called Trapped, where if you had failed the level, the child would be trapped in the tower forever. And so
Right.
you just had a whole building full of just children that couldn't escape. Uh, you might need to call the police on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, hopefully, this is correct because sometimes I've made blunders. But whether or not this is correct, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But what would it like appearing in 3 episodes of the 90s edition, if I'm not mistaken, of Grange Hill?
Again, I really enjoyed it. I think the only things about at the time, and maybe a lot of kids shows are still like this, it was all issue based.
Yeah.
This week on Grange Hill, it's the environment. This week, it's about being gay, and it was a bit like, all right, we don't have to have issues the whole time. This week's hot topic.
Yeah.
I think kids do need a bit of a break from that occasionally. It doesn't have to be constantly smashing them with a message. So I remember we were in an environmental one. It was all
Yeah.
very right on about the environment. But yeah, I enjoyed that. Thrilled to be in what was what is a kind of a real culturally significant show in Britain. And I mean, when I was about 13, I went up for Grange Hill, but I didn't get the part. So it was nice all those years later to be in that.
Mm. And because of the rumours of a revival film that was knocking about, do you reckon that you would, if asked, would be glad to return to the world of Grange Hill?
There's some rumor of a film of Grange Hill, is there?
Yeah, yeah. So it's where like some of the kids that were in it in the 80s and
Yeah, yeah.
70s would return as either parents or teachers, and they have a new set of
I
children.
would love to be in that. I don't think they'll ask me playing 3 episodes as an eco warrior, but if it happened, yeah, I'd love to.
Well, we are in the environmental era of the world, so
Yes, yes, maybe. Yeah.
maybe. And so not only have you appeared on children's TV and appeared on TV. You've also worked on some additional material for different programs. What was it like writing additional material for Watson and Oliver?
Yes, I really that was a BBC Two show starring two very funny female comics. So I wrote for them, and I'm very proud about what I wrote for them. I mean, again, I suppose if I'm being really fussy, I don't think the show had the budget. I remember writing a sketch. It was a character who based on these people who a very British thing who were like, can I get off early from work? If you remember, I only had half an hour for lunch. And the idea was that it was, you know, you can sort of get Americans when it's all about being corporate. You would never hear that. Can I get off early? And it's such a British thing. So I had a character would always do that. So, for example, I had them set at the Kennedy Space Station in the 1960s. And what would happen if there was disaster? I think Apollo 19 or one of these came into trouble, and we just had a British woman with her coat on trying to sidle out, doing that sort of awkward British thing. Yeah, okay, boo-hoo, sorry about them. But if you remember, I only had half an hour for lunch, and I wrote this, and when it came out, I had visions of it being a really brilliant pastiche of all those people smoking in the 60s and sort of their white shirts and black tie, a bit like you're wearing, sat there, watching this grainy monitor and it being very high tension, and someone sneaking out going, oh, sorry, could I get away, with her mittens on and ready to get away. And I just remember thinking the budget was so small. They just had a couple of people in what was obviously a BBC office with a poster of a bloody rocket behind them. I just thought, no, that's not quite what I had in mind. So I guess that was a real lesson in you've got to write for the budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I wrote a couple of things that I'm very proud of from that show, Watson and Oliver. And I think did they do 2 series? I don't know. But maybe they just did 1. But I think it could have been, it did have its moments. I think it could have been better, again, with a bigger budget.
Yeah. And if I say the name of the program right, because I think there's 2 different versions with an extra word to it. I might be wrong in this. We'll see. And so you've also worked on a program that recently returned to the BBC iPlayer. What was it like working on Look Around?
Look Around You. Yeah.
Dewey had the U in it.
Great. Yeah. I did that with Peter Serafinowicz and Robert Popper. I think they both wrote that. Yeah, great. That is the kind of comedy I love, and it's the kind of comedy I don't write. I write very kind of mainstream stuff. But Peter and Robert and James Serafinowicz really write that sort of lateral thinking. It's a slightly surreal, it's just my favorite type of comedy. And I just don't have that in me to write. But there's kind of slightly where you have something that's very normal, but it's slightly sort of wilted, or slightly, it's very hard to describe that kind of humor, but it's subtle and it's funny. And Look Around You was a great kind of pastiche of, 80s science programs. So yeah, great. And I think that's probably what put me in touch with Peter Serafinowicz for his Peter Serafinowicz show, which we did a little bit after that.
Yeah. And do you reckon that your career so far, because no career is ended until you either retire or die, do you reckon your career is a steady incline at the moment?
Well, Tom, I got to tell you, I often think I'm having the longest apprenticeship anyone has ever had in any business. I was a child actor. Thankfully, I've never had to do anything else. I will say, since Peter very kindly allowed me to do the character, I get people like you wanting me to speak about my career, which I spent many years, no one giving 2 hoots what I'm doing. So it is kind of lovely. And I occasionally, I just did an interview for the Sunday Mirror, about Clinton. And then I get asked to go on Talk Sport, and Rob Brydon interviewed me for his podcast. And so it does seem that somehow in my mid-50s, people are sort of interested. And I get people asking me, oh, I remember you in this, that, and the other. And I think, I don't remember anyone coming out the woodwork at the time being any, remotely interested in me. So I think, luckily, I'm happy to say, touch wood, yeah, it's kind of it's still going,
Yeah.
which is a lovely thing. But I think really you've got to hope to be able to just stay afloat as an actor. It's really hard. It's a hard thing to do, be a performer, as I said. So I'm really, really so grateful to God or my parents and my wife and friends and colleagues in the business that I'm kind of still allowed to keep doing this for a living, because it does seem an extraordinarily stupid, childish thing to still be allowed to do at 55.
And with having your two, if I'm not mistaken, two Clinton Baptiste specials on the amazing streaming service Next Up Comedy, do you reckon
Oh
that
yeah,
bringing a brand new, young, I wouldn't say young and hip, but I don't know the age demographic for the streaming service Next Up Comedy. Do you
right.
reckon you'll get a new type of audience coming to your shows that have seen the ones that are on Next Up?
I don't know. I mean, I never really watch Next Up. They're great at filming our stuff. And I always get loads of notifications on my emails and stuff that there's Next Up comedy stuff going on. But I mean, I hope so. I hope that people don't think I'm a kind of dinosaur. I think people call it in the business, in comedy business, hack. He's a hack comedian. Like, it's very old fashioned, and he just trots out jokes. And I like to think that Clinton is kind of appeals to people from all demographics. It's sort of got the charm of the end of the pier 1950s working men's club sort of feel. But also, I've done gigs at the Moth Club in Hackney, which is a very sort of trendy comedy club, and people got what I was doing there. So I like to think it's got kind of broad appeal. If that's people who are watching Next Up, then that's great. But I think, to be honest, my audience is mostly people over 30 years of age, which seems very old to you, but still seems very young to me. And then I get, quite people in their 60s who come to see me. So, long may that continue. But I know attracting a really young crowd, I'm not particularly bothered about that.
Well, because I know the Next Up what are trying to make comedy as accessible as possible, because
Right.
not everyone can make it to a venue, and so they
Yeah.
live stream a lot of comedy at the really well-known venues and stream like the most current, or like when they do the Edinburgh Fringe, like the up and coming competitions. So I do
Right.
think that Next Up at A, trying to make sure that everyone can chuckle no matter where they
Yes.
are, and B, so that young people can see comedy and go, "Ooh, I want to do that," and then get more people into the
Well,
industry.
I really hope so. If that's what they're planning to do, I hope that's a thing. I mean, my son is 20 years old. How old are you now?
19.
Right. So he sends me the funniest stuff from TikTok and Instagram and the internet, YouTube, whatever. And I always think, my God, why would anyone go to see stand-up comedy or watch a sketch show? It's all there online, and it's so funny. You go, blimey, all these years, only a tiny select amount of people have been allowed to perform on TV or radio. And then suddenly, with this golden new age, it's endless supply of ridiculously hilarious stuff. So, if Next Up can encourage people to go and see stand-up comedy, which of course is an art form and it does require writing and, sort of shaping, then good on them.
And do you have any particular goals in life for your career? Is there any like milestone like TV shows or milestone radio shows you want to appear on?
Not really. I mean, I'm really happy with how it's going. I don't know whether TV and radio is what it used to be. When I started off, it was all about that. But as I say, there are all these platforms, and I'd rather be busy and able to do what I think is funny and good without endless layers of people telling me I can't do that, and we're going to do that, or we're not going with your idea anymore. I really like the fact that it's given us this freedom, and I put podcasts out that people listen to, and to be honest with you, going out and doing a show and you hear the audience in the auditorium and it's very exciting and you get very nervous and a bell rings to the audience, 5 minutes before the show's about to start. I mean, this sounds very pretentious and old fashioned, but you'll be in the dressing room and a voice will say, Mr. Lowe, to the stage, please. We're about to start the show. It's all kind of exciting and real. So I'm very happy to do that. And if nothing else happens, as long as I can still do that, and there's an audience who want to turn up to see me, and you get hot under the lights, and then you get out the end of it and you feel like elated because it worked and they laughed. And honestly, that's kind of why I wanted to do it when I was a boy of 8 years old, and I still want to do it now at 55 for the same reasons.
And do you reckon that 'cause I don't know if this is true, but do you reckon that the podcast is going to continue forever, or do you reckon that there's an end in sight for the Clinton Baptiste podcast?
Well, I am. Funny you should say that, because I'm about to stop for about 5 months or maybe 4 months. I don't know, because I'm about to go and do this tour next year in March 2024. And so I've just got to stop doing the podcast for a while because it takes up a lot of my time. And I've got to get down and write this show. It's already well selling the tickets, but I'm time is ticking. So I've got to stop doing the podcast. But when it comes back, I don't know in what form. Ideally, I would like to be sitting there on YouTube and doing it like this, with vision, and trying something else, or we just continue with it on audio. But for the time being, I do want to keep it going. But I just to say, yeah, I'm going to have a little break for a little bit.
And whereabouts are you going on this brand new tour?
See behind me, this is my 2024, what's it called? Day planner, calendar, wall planner. And that has all my dates for up and down the country. I'm going everywhere, all over the country. Scotland, we're going to Belfast as well, and Dublin. There's something like 100 dates. It's a real punishing one. However, it's not every single day, so I can come home and see my wife and family, which is a lovely thing. I think if I was out continuously, doing 100 dates one day after another, I don't think I could do it.
And do you reckon that because you're going on this new tour and you need to promote it to sell more tickets, do you reckon you'll get to go into Sunday brunch to promote the show?
Sunday brunch is what? Channel 4, is it? Yeah. God, that would be nice. Please have me on Sunday brunch. Yeah, I know. I'd love to do something like that. And you do have to promote it. Otherwise you'll be in a big echoey theatre with no one there, just me talking to space. So yeah, I really hope people come. I'll do any publicity to get people to come.
And for anyone that's out there watching this and questioning their life choices, wondering why they're wasting the time sat about doing nothing, talking to no one in particular, literally, not even a joke, that one. What advice would you give to people that want to get into the performing industry, whether or not that's normal acting or comedy acting?
I would say, honestly, this sounds dramatic, but if you think that's the only thing you can possibly do, or only thing you want to do, it's an absolute burning desire, like I was when I was sort of 8 years old, when I was pleading with my parents to send me to some sort of drama training, then I would do it. But it's a really, you have to be very thick-skinned. Everyone must have said this to you you've spoken to. You have to be very thick-skinned, because it is hard to take a lot of rejection, which you will have to take. It's nothing personal. They just don't want you for their thing. If you were selling leather jackets on a stall in a market and people say, I don't like your leather jackets, you go, well, I don't really care. That's fine. It's just a leather jacket. But it's very hard to take if it's you and people keep going, no, you're not for us. And you think you've got somewhere and you nearly hit the jackpot, which has happened to me many, many times. Many, many times there's been something that's about to break. I've done films which didn't quite come off, where I thought, oh, this is going to be huge. I did a show for Channel 4 with Noel Edmonds called Cheap, 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 where I played my Barry from Watford character. We did 31-hour episodes for Channel 4. And Noel Edmonds, who has the Midas touch, and nothing happened. It came and went. No, it's like no one even saw it. It was on daily on Channel 4. So many times things you think you're about to hit the jackpot, or you just think you're dead cert for a job and people have told you you've got the job and you still don't get the job. So it is really hard to take that. And it does take a certain amount of, thick skin and determination and actually naivety and stupidity to keep going with it,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'd say. If it's the only thing, absolutely the only thing you can do, then I would do it.
Yeah.
But if not, don't do it.
And do you reckon that with the evolution of YouTube and with the way that a lot of people making short films, their own web series and other bits and bobs on YouTube, do you reckon that's a hindrance to the arts, or do you reckon that's a helpful tool for people to have a jumping on point to be able to say to producers or developers and say, "Here's what I've done. I want to do this."
I think anything that is a platform for performing is fine, is good. And there will always be a live element. And if you do stuff on YouTube and then you think I want to do it live, then that's a good thing. I don't think it's detrimental at all. I think I suppose, if I was a guy commissioning TV shows, you might think, oh my God, my little fiefdom, my kingdom of putting stuff on has, been slightly usurped by this new media. I know someone, funny enough, who was a children's TV producer, who said they just can't get the people who kids, this is an interesting point, who kids like, YouTubers, because they earn more money and they get more views online. So there is an element of that, yeah. But from where I'm standing as a performer, I think it's only a good thing.
And so, as we're coming to the swimming pool, the pond of towards the end of the interview, the towards the end of the lazy river, that's the
Yes.
correct water-based
Yeah, analogy, yes, yes.
analogy I was after. How did you come about doing the voice for the wonderful Clinton Baptiste?
Well, I exaggerate a bit. I've got quite a high voice. I kind of naturally sort of up here. And so it's just something I added. I mean, I play this Barry from Watford character. It's like a very elderly man, you see. And it's like a very old man with not much lung capacity, you see. And he used to go up quite high. He'd be saying, you get them in the cinema, the kids eating hamburgers, hot dogs, nachos with cheese. And I used to do all this sort of high stuff, and I've just adopted it for Clinton. So, I mean, look, if nothing else, you get a laugh from doing a high-pitched voice. If you haven't got any jokes. So it's just something I've added. It's a little character note.
Yeah. And now we're at the part of the interview where you can tell people where they can find you, but don't give away your home address.
Okay, please go to clintonbaptiste.com. And if you want to come and see me on tour, to see my tour Roller Coaster, which I would love you to do, go to clintonbaptiste.com/tour. Thank you.
And where can people hear your podcasts, all of them?
Great. Thank you very much. Go to patreon.com/Clinton Baptiste. Or if you don't want to give me any money, and quite honestly, it's only $5 a month, you can find it on Acast. It's called the all new Clinton Baptiste Paranormal Podcast. I don't even know it's called all new anymore. Clinton Baptiste Paranormal Podcast is what it's called.
That is correct. And where can they find your other podcasts?
Oh yeah, we do another one called. We go to patreon.com/Angelos and Barry Show, and it's me with Angelos Epithemiou, Barry from Watford, and Angelos Epithemiou.
There we go. So there we have it. Another epic, glorious, and still, if you saw my last interview, still haven't found a thesaurus to find a better word than the word amazing. So we're yet to get on the bandwagon of finding the better word than amazing. But one day, we'll find a better word than amazing, because I use amazing more times than I use the word a. Well, amazing begins with the letter A. Anyway, so to find more interviews from me, well, I've got 20 YouTube channels. So it'll be out there somewhere. Just use your fingers and type. Or if you're lazy, go to tommason.uk and you'll find them there. It's a less lazy, well, it's a lazy solution to a very complicated process that isn't that complicated. It's just using your fingers to type more letters than you need to. If that makes any sense whatsoever. So thank you, Alex, for letting me interview you.
Thank you.
And hopefully we see you on Sunday brunch to promote your tour. Because
Very
then
good.
you eat for 3 hours and then
Thank you.
realise you shouldn't have booked lunch afterwards, and then get told off by the presenters for booking lunch with your family afterwards, because a lot of the guests get in trouble for that.
Okay.
Because they should not eat as much as they have, and they've eaten all the plates. Because like big foods. And so there we have it. And remember, no, I've forgotten.